We were talking about these sessions not too long ago. I forget with whom, but
really,
those were rather intense sessions for that record.
really, I'd like to hear about that.
I don't want to distract you on your cutting and pasting duties. So.
We're actually live, but I just like to listen to the music first.
Are you broadcasting my voice?
Yes, I am.
Holy smokes! I better watch what I say. Yeah, the LSO has such a beautiful, buttery sound to them. The strings are amazing.
It's so beautiful. I think we're probably here. I don't want to really talk over your music, though.
This piece, if you can believe it, was actually written as a trombone feature. Now that I think of it, it seems sort of odd because it has sort of a life of its own at this point. But I think it actually was recorded. I had written it for Bart van Leer, the Dutch trombonist, amazing trombonist. That was my colleague in the Metropole for many years. And I think I wrote more things for it because it was, about having it be sort of a short sonata for trombone, but
yeah,
I took a lot of it out for the Epiphany recording.
Yeah. Gosh. Sorry. I'm messing around here. Can you still hear it?
I can hear it.
Oh, so beautiful. Guitar in this, Vince?
That's John Abercrombie on the guitar.
Here you go, Jamie. My friend Jamie Finley.
This is John Abercrombie, Peter Erskine on the drums, Mark Johnson, the late, great John Taylor on the piano. And then Kenny Wheeler on the trumpet on Epiphany, and Mike Brecker, Joe Lovano. They weren't around for the sessions, just the rhythm section. The rhythm section were in the room.
I see.
Or is it was in the room? I think it's was in the room. The rhythm section was in the room. Trying to work on my English during this
That's the COVID thing,
times. My English and my handwriting.
Well, this is so very beautiful. I hate to turn it off. So,
it's almost over.
Good.
Yeah, 1997. What was that?
Sorry. Going right into my my album with Ross Tompkins.
Nice.
That was Ross Tompkins. He's,
Oh man, Ross.
divine. Yeah. Well, my special guest today is Vince Mendoza, and we were just listening to my collection of the album Epiphany with the London Symphony Orchestra. Is that it?
That's right. That's right.
And that song was Impromptu.
Right.
And I was telling Vince, this is why I fell in love with his music. Listening to this, I don't remember when I heard it first, but I've always been inclined, well, since college, towards Peter Erskine and that genre of music. And so I don't know when I heard you, but when I heard you, I was like, oh yes, that was really beautiful.
Well, thank you. Well, thanks for the invitation to hang out with you on Facebook.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I was watching a few interviews, with you, and this is going to be nothing like those.
Why?
Because this is just like super casual, super casual. They were like, and then when you were doing blah, 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 and you were answering very nicely. And
despite what people say, I could be very casual.
I know, because in my dealings with you before, you've been very casual.
Yeah. Well, that record, Epiphany, is is one of those records in my career that sort of appeared, and record companies didn't know what to do with it, and it didn't fit in this bin or that bin. You had the jazz guys with the LSO, and there's a fair amount of dissonance in all original music and no standards, and it doesn't swing very much, and there's no swinging actually in all of it. So, nobody knew what to do with this thing. But fortunately, it's been one of those records that people talk about, and it's still around, and you can find it, and it's on all the services XYZ, and I'm happy that people can hear it, because especially since quite a few of the soloists on the records are no longer with us. It's a beautiful record of where they were at the time, and how generous they were to play on this music under, in the case of the rhythm section, under a great deal of pressure, obviously, to be sitting in there with an orchestra and improvise now, and read the parts. and watch the conductor
Kenny
and do it
Wheeler.
better on another take.
And
Yeah.
Kenny Wheeler was just like incredible. And John Taylor and well, no,
Yeah.
did you say John? Yeah, John Abercrombie. Oh my God,
Abercrombie and
just
guitar.
those guys alone. It's just, there must be a really beautiful spot in heaven where those guys.
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, and in my heart, all those beautiful friends, and they were so generous with this music and played so beautifully. I'll always be grateful to the people that share their beautiful talents on my music, and those solos are amazing, and every take was great. I should go back and listen to the outtakes of these tunes and see what they sound like. I'm sure they're pretty good.
Yeah. When you were first starting out, as an arranger, did you, this may kind of sound like a silly question, but did you imagine that you were going to do something grand like that, with the orchestra and the jazz inclusion really did set you apart, and I can imagine how confused the record companies were over that.
Well, there's a similar one coming out this year, and that one of the it was a similar sort of conversation with the record executives about how they were going to market the thing, because it has a similar sort of, it's not this, but it's not this, and it's not that, but it's this, and but to answer your question, I think Epiphany was a continuum for me. It was a logical progression of the things that I thought about even as a young musician, wanting to be hearing orchestras on the radio. I grew up listening to the Philly soul, and Tom Bell and Gamble and Huff, and all of that music had orchestra on it.
Yeah,
with horn sections and the rhythm section and glockenspiel. So that the integration of those instruments was always part of my recipe. And,
interesting, because not every kid hears that. Right?
Yeah.
They hear the melody, they hear the drums and the bass, or but
Yeah.
a lot of times they miss the background orchestra.
Yeah, but I can imagine that a lot of young musicians spend a fair amount of time dreaming, as I did as a youngster, listening to the radio or listening to music or whatever, thinking about what it would be like in the studio. And that's really when the light went on for me. I wanted to do that. I wanted to be, I want to be a Reef Martin when I grow up, and, I want to be in there with the orchestra and Aretha and, and so that the orchestra with rhythm section thing was really part of the continuum of my path. And so those soloists I had been working with for a few years before Epiphany came along, and obviously they were the ones that popped into my consciousness when I was writing the music.
Yeah.
And especially Abercrombie, and I had been working with him and Pete and Mike Brecker and Lovano too. I had worked with them on several recordings before Epiphany, so they popped into my consciousness when this music came up for Epiphany.
Yeah. I'm just curious, do you recall one of the first times that you were kind of blown away by your creation, or by, what had kind of emerged out of your writing? Was it in college, or was it, I would assume it would be in college that you got to experience it?
Yeah. I mean, one of the great, for all of you college and high school band directors that are seeking to recruit musicians to your school, that's the perfect example of it. When I was in high school, my high school band director met the director of the jazz department at Ohio State, it wasn't on my top 10 lists of schools to attend, to be honest. And so I'm not sure whether I really thought about applying there, but they met at a jazz educators convention, and the band director, the high school band director, gave a copy of my chart to the guy at Ohio State. And a few weeks later, I received a cassette of the band that had been in the recording studio and recorded this piece for me. And of course, it sounded like a studio recording, and it's, with the verb and the panning and a great mix, and it, the performance was great, and for me, that was it. I mean, the rest of it was sort of on paper. This school has this and this guy and this guy, and I didn't care about that. I had a recording my chart. I'm going, and so I went there, and the rest is history. I made a lot of beautiful friends there, and did a lot of studio work and film scores, and there were some good recording studios in Columbus that had opened up right around that time, and I got to work with some string sections, and sort of got my feet wet in working in the studio, and that was the beginning. That was the beginning of my path at studio discipline.
Yeah.
But it all started with that tape, hearing a recording of your music being played, and it's the same. You go into a recording studio with wonderful musicians, and they play something that you have written, a week before or 2 weeks before, and it just comes to life, and that's a miracle.
Yeah, it's pretty thrilling.
Yeah, sure is.
Yeah. Do you, for the most part, do you get hired for creating jobs, or do you also, at this point, just create what you'd like anyway?
Are you talking about writing music?
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about. Sorry, that was a little vague. At this point,
it's a mysterious question, Cathy.
I was wondering if most of the works are work for hire, or do you create something that you have an idea for?
Well, for those composers listening out in the audience, we try not to use the phrase "work for hire."
What do I know? I just see that in writing everywhere,
To answer your question, then, these days, most of the writing that I've been doing has been as a result of a commission.
That's the word.
Or if it's
word. Sorry.
Yeah, if it's an arrangement for somebody's record, or I don't generally sit down and say I'm going to write a piccolo sonata today.
Yeah.
Maybe I should.
Interesting that you picked a piccolo sonata. Maybe
piccolo players out there.
Something brewing in the back of your mind.
Yeah, could be. I'll start working at it as soon as this is over. My piccolo sonata.
Where was it? What record was Ambivalence on?
All right, Ambivalence has a long history.
Oh, that's from the same record.
Well, actually, there was an arrangement of Ambivalence on Epiphany.
Yeah.
But also Ambivalence first appeared on Peter's Sweet Soul record.
That's also, I'm just trying to remember. Maybe that's where I don't know if I first heard it there.
I might have heard it on that one, and Joe played soprano saxophone on that recording of it.
Uh-huh.
And I'd like to think that there was another version of Ambivalence before that, but I can't remember what it is.
So Ambivalence was a really beautiful song, which I will play. And actually, that was one of those songs that I fell in love with, and it called for lyrics from me. Yeah. And actually, Vince suggested the name for it, because you have to when you write lyrics for an existing song, you have to name it something else so that the publishing will be properly given to the composer for his song, his or her song. So anyway, it's a really beautiful song, and
Thank you. Well, thank you for for recording it. And then did Dennis Dreeth do the arrangement?
yes, he did. Yeah,
He did a beautiful job on the arrangement
yeah,
from the Jazz Chamber record, right?
yes,
From 2018. And
yeah.
that was a pretty adventurous record. You used a large ensemble on that one.
Yeah, that was pretty good. And Bevan Manson did like 5 of the arrangements. Are you familiar with Bevan?
I don't know Bevan. Hi,
You
Bevan.
didn't like him. Bevan is a genius guy, but really warm and wonderful. And he has one foot in classical and one foot in jazz. He studied under, I forget. Well, he was at New England Conservatory, and George, help me, George, the big, huge arranger, composer, George. Well, anyway, my brain isn't working, but Bevan is
You mean
truly
George Russell? He was at
George
New
Russell.
England.
Yeah, yep,
Wow.
George Russell, and there was another guy. I call him Guy. I shouldn't even call him Guy because he was a big composer, arranger. I once went to his home. Maybe it was with Bevan, and it was this expansive mansion, and there was all this music going on everywhere in the house. His kids were into it, and Bevan was a student and maybe a helper of his. Anyway, I'll send you his information because I think that you would really appreciate Bevan.
Please
Um,
do. It was a beautiful record. Was that the biggest party that you've ever thrown?
It was actually. It was kind of a. My friend Dan DeVilla was kind enough to um, foot the bill for that, and it was definitely something that I had dreamed of doing, and I had fun. That was just, boy, that was great.
Did you record the vocals with the orchestra?
Just not the final vocals, the just the rough tracks.
Mm-hmm.
But do you remember that I had my vocal improv group do a Benny Maupin song on that? Do you remember that? It's called Message to Prez.
Mm.
My group Fish to Birds, and it was a Benny Maupin song, and it was, Benny, it's one of his favorites because he always plays it. And, it has a real strong, relatively short head to it. And then, so it was perfect for our group. We've been together for about 8 or 9 years, and we basically improvise. But if we have a little line, then we expand on that.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that. And then Bevan took it and made it into 3 movements. And then Benny came in and played bass clarinet on it.
Oh, wow.
It's one of my favorite cuts. It's just, it's a wonderful progression, a pathway. It's really beautiful. Yeah.
So do you find that when you're singing with a larger group like that it changes your performance?
Yeah, that I think that is one of my lessons, my challenging lessons in my musical life. It does change it, but it's like playing in an ensemble. You're aware of the other players, and of course they're feeding you and you're feeding them.
Right.
But you can't significantly go along with what they're doing, right? You have to be yourself, but totally connected and in the same room. But the more yourself you are, the more fabulous the music turns out. Weather Report taught me that, years ago when I realized that they were all playing something different. They weren't, copying as the earlier jazz would do, kind of really duplicate a da-da, everybody would jump on that wagon,
Right.
But Weather Report did not do that.
Well, you have the added layer of the lyrics of the song that you're singing, and in a perfect world, the ensemble would resonate with your story, right? So I imagine that the ensemble, the writing would somehow amplify what it is that you're trying to say. But I was just
Yeah.
wondering whether you feel that when you're singing.
Well, have you ever heard Nancy King's Metropole record?
I have.
That's a good example. And I know because I talked to Steve Christofferson that he told the arrangers, Nancy's going to do what she wants.
Right.
So, you know, so I think that with what you said, with the sensitivity of the writing and playing, but the writing especially, the sensitivity to the singer and the story, but then the singer uh, has to find the magical balance of timing, right, and harmony, but timing, especially, and has to do what they do well, because I think that's what a great singer does, right? A great singer has a timing that's very unique to them and developed so that it's very artful. So
Well,
yeah,
great anything.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. But actually, now that you bring it up, I think that may be a reason why I didn't really do a lot of big band singing coming up. Like my friends were collecting big band charts, and it didn't feel comfortable to me to sing with the big band. It was I was kind of forced into something, or that's what I
Right.
felt.
Right. Well, part of it is that there's more so with the big band than any other ensemble that I write for. Unfortunately, there's a huge body of work for big band that puts the ensemble in a box stylistically
Right.
that people expect to use, and I don't see that. I don't. When I work with an orchestra, I don't expect it always to play like Beethoven, but for some reason, when we hear a big band, there are certain conventions that writers always use when they're working with the band that may not have anything to do with you or the words coming out of your mouth, and so I think that's maybe part of your frustration working with a group like that, or just maybe the sheer the sheer Mack truck of it all. Could it be?
Yeah, that could be. Well, you have written for a number of wonderful singers. Well, of course, the Joni Mitchell. That one, I have to say, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but I remember my friend Karen Hammock, who's an excellent pianist. She and I were listening to Both Sides Now and A Case of You, absolutely weeping. We were weeping the whole time. The first time we heard it, weeping, and it was
Weeping is the desired effect.
yeah, it was a combination of your writing and how it supported what she was doing and her, where she was coming from at that point in her life, and the songs were kind of a reflection looking back. Oh my God, wow. So for
That was a
you,
gift.
was that process like we're talking about?
Well, yes, absolutely, and I think that the recording process in particular, we found that Joni's presence in the studio and vocals with the orchestra took her performance up a few hundred notches, as well as the orchestra. The orchestra played much better with her being there than just recording a track and following my directions, because we took great pains, first of all, to make that music resonate with her, and she chose the material to resonate with her vision of the arc of the whole record. And the same thing with Travelogue. She had an idea of what the record should be, but we also had an idea of what we wanted you to feel about the lyric and how to go about it. So the fact that we went through that process of making it happen that way, the reward was in the studio when she went to sing the lyric, that, you know, not only did it take the meaning of the lyric up a few hundred notches as well, but everyone played better, and of course she was there, so they were all excited about her presence. And so in general, you know, I think it's better to have the vocalist with the ensemble in the studio, so we understand what it is that you're trying to say.
Yeah, yeah,
Instead of putting things together in a piecemeal fashion.
yeah. Do you know the story of the Joao Gilberto doing, what's that famous record he did with the orchestra with Klaus Orgelman? It's the really famous one, short name. Anyway, he apparently did his part first on guitar and singing.
Oh, right.
And then they they put the arrangement behind. And actually, we were speaking. Oh yeah, it was Chuck Israel's. I'm on a a weekly thing.
It's Amoroso, right?
Yes, right, Amoroso. Right. And Chuck Israel's actually was around him at that time, and he said that he was. I always thought that it was a very natural thing for Joao to just sing in that timing, because his timing, I mean, he had great time, but he always sang ahead, right? And yes. I just thought it was really natural. He said he actually practiced it over and over and over again, and which was interesting to me, because I just thought, well, you're Brazilian, you can do it, you know. But
what Brazilians do you know that put phrasing before before the music?
Well, that's well, I can't honestly say, but Brazilian singers definitely, I mean, they don't change the melodies that much. You know, it's mostly about the phrasing, and then how the phrasing fits over the new harmony where they've shifted it, right?
Right.
But actually, you're right. I don't actually know who else sings ahead.
I don't. It's an unusual practice. But in that case, you know, when you listen to Klaus's arrangements on that record, you know, he's not redefining the song in any way. In fact, there's I would even venture a guess to say that his job is just to stay out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the writing is quite minimal there. And this, quite a few of the songs are, you know, have been around for a long time. So, you know, I think it was the desire of either Joao or Klaus to reinvent the song.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, it might have been interesting to hear Joao sing with the orchestra and do it together. And that might have, or, you know, maybe he didn't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he didn't want to do that, right? Because he was definitely the star. I get a feeling of, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And do you feel like you're an accomplished player as well?
I've accomplished one thing, Cathy. I've accomplished being able to make a living without having to depend on my playing. Yes, well, I'm a card-carrying member of Trumpet Players Anonymous at this point. I started on the guitar. That was my first instrument. And I played classical guitar, and I tried to play jazz guitar, but I never really learned how to do that properly. But
it's a big job.
Yeah, it's a big job. And, you know, I still do want to learn how to play R&B guitar and play bluesy solos and things like that. I don't know. That's another COVID activity I could practice. But trumpet was my main instrument. And when I came out to LA, I was, you know, quasi-professional at it. You know, I played a lot of gigs and did things here, but I wasn't, I didn't feel it, and I wasn't. I got so much more satisfaction out of hearing my music being played and by better people
Yeah.
than I. And as you know from my recordings, I had quite a few amazing trumpet players on it that did far more justice to my music than I could ever consider. So there the trumpet stays on the stand, and once in a while I pick it up. But
I was just going to say it's there. We'll see. Maybe we could play some duets.
It's an ugly instrument, though, if you're not playing it all the time, as my neighbors might attest to. But my trumpet friends are encouraging me to stay at it. And, I complain to them from time to time. But basically all the old habits come back instantaneously.
The good habits?
No.
The bad habit. You know what I always found? I always found when I picked up my flute over the years, because I went to Berkeley for flute, and then I kind of gave it up for singing for, I don't know why. But anyway, I would pick up the flute, and I actually had the embouchure, and I remember the fingerings, and I got a good tone. But the more I played it, the worse I got, which was, I guess, the bad, like you say, the bad habits kind of.
Was that because the excitement of actually picking up the instrument and blowing it went away, and the reality of your, the physical part of playing kicked in?
Maybe.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that you pick it up after after not playing for years, and you go, I think this could happen, and then another 10 minutes later, all the twisting and pressing start, and and then you realize maybe this is why I stopped.
Well, you know what I did? I took a lesson last week from Laurie Bell, who's a wonderful flutist.
Excellent.
And that was the first lesson I've taken since college. I don't know why I never thought about it, but I don't know. I just really don't know, seriously. And then once I took the lesson, I was like, well, of course I have to take a lesson. I can't just pick it up and do it. I think that's my nature of, thinking, I'll just do this. Yeah.
Well, why not?
Well, because flute, like Laurie said, you need to have lessons on flute. I like what she said about flute. She said she's a bitchy princess. And she really needs what she needs.
No comment. All I could say is that I'm a better trumpet player in my imagination than I could ever be in real life.
Okay.
And I intend to keep it that way.
All right.
But I could easily tell other trumpet players what I want them to play, and they can do it.
Cool.
There are so many amazing trumpet players in this fair city, by the way.
Yes, there are.
Incredible.
Really wonderful. But this city actually has a rich abundance of great players. Doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, all you have to do is listen to the body of work of Hollywood movies.
Yeah.
Movie scores for decades and decades of tremendous studio musicians, making beautiful, magical music out of the page on demand.
Yeah.
Perfection.
Yeah.
Incredible. And we live here. How cool is that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, before COVID, it was just like the Blue Whale and Just Jazz in Hollywood. They were having some wonderful, wonderful places.
The Blue Whale was a huge hit for me and for many musicians, but that was probably one of the first jazz clubs in all the years that I spent in LA that actually hung out. I went there, and my wife and I would go there and listen to music and hang out and say hi to people. And we don't generally do that. I'm a composer. I sit in my office. But the thing I noticed is that Blue Whale gave a chance to younger musicians to go in there and experiment.
Right.
what the music is. That's what jazz is about. Take chances and try stuff, and we get to listen to it. And it was a huge hit to lose that place. I'm hoping that maybe they'll find another place to spring up and start all over again.
You never know. June, the owner, was my student. And he sings wonderfully. He's along that modern jazz element. He did a recording with Vardan of Sepian.
Oh yeah,
that was really beautiful. A duo recording, really beautiful. And but I think it's hard to say if he's going to do that again at some point. He's been in Korea for a while now. Spending more time in Korea with his family and stuff.
Did he ever set up gigs there?
In Korea?
But no, here at the Blue Whale. Did he ever sing?
Yes, he did.
Nice.
Yep. Really fun. I think there's some on probably on YouTube that you can find. Mm-hmm. Wonderful singer. Really wonderful.
Well, the without going too far down memory lane, thinking about the jazz clubs that I have worked in or been to over the years.
In LA, you mean?
Yeah, in LA, where there have been so many clubs that have hosted jazz musicians over the years, and then they close down, and other ones come up, and they close down, and other ones come up, and must be because there's a desire to host improvisation in their place. I don't know.
Well, the working musicians would always say, I closed another club. It's like, well, and every gig must end, things like that. Paul Kreibach is a very funny and wonderful drummer. He has a list of all the clubs he could remember over the years, which is pretty humorous, I
was going to say the list of all the clubs he closed over the years.
Well, that too. I'm gonna see if I can send you that list of venues, because you'll just get a kick out of looking at that. What year did you come here?
1983.
Okay, yeah. So there's been a lot of clubs since 1983. I got here in 76.
Well, there could be some people out in Facebook land that are listening to this that were members of the Vince Mendoza big band in 1983. When I first came out here, I started meeting musicians and wanted to put together a big band and schmooze central, but just to meet all of these players, and I had stacks of legal pad names and phone numbers of sax players and trumpet players, and it was a great way of meeting people. But we would rehearse on Friday mornings at the Union, and I'd bring donuts and coffee, and then maybe every 4 or 5 weeks we would play some gig at whatever jazz club that happened to be open at the time, and we'd all make our requisite $2 a piece if we didn't spend it on beer, and that's how my big band operated for quite a few years, until I realized that I could spend my entire life keeping that band together for $2 a night. So I better start actually doing something more substantive with my time. So it stopped, but we played the last one of the last nights at Dante's, the club on Lancashire.
I was a waitress there.
Oh, were you there that night?
No, probably not. I was a waitress there in 76 through almost 78.
Well, that was a storied club.
Yes, it was.
Just, so many musicians.
You played the last night?
It was one of the last nights in that club before they took the wrecking ball to it.
Yeah.
And now it's a used car lot. It's turning into a Joni Mitchell song again.
Well, the Japanese were going to buy that club, but then
Yes.
Carrie died in the bathroom,
Yes.
and that's why they backed out, and thus the wrecking ball.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether I should share that story, but I guess you can confirm that it's true.
It was true, yeah.
Yeah, it was bad luck to keep a building that somebody dies in. So um, then it went away. A shame because it really was
It was a great club.
you know,
There were
stellar.
a number during that time. There were a number. Remember the club? I forget the name of it. It was on Van Nuys Boulevard near Ventura Boulevard, and Chuck, the drummer, he owned it. His family owned it. That was a really nice club. It was actually a large room. You don't maybe you didn't play there.
Van
Maybe that
Nuys
was
and
before
what?
your time. It was on Van Nuys, and it was just like a block up. The area is still intact. Just a block up from Ventura Boulevard. After there's like a hamburger hamlet there, and a light, and just
It,
past the light.
it's not still there, is it?
Well, the building is, but it's obviously not the same club. But the building's still there.
It
Yeah,
doesn't ring a bell.
that was a great club, and I mean, there was Alphonse's and Chadney's, but that was probably not the big band clubs. What were the
Except if you're the NBC orchestra.
right?
Chadney's was
The
uh,
NBC lunchroom or something.
the Tonight Show band
Oh,
had their
Carmelo's. Thank you, Liz Finch.
Carmelo's.
That was what
Sure.
the club on Van Nuys Boulevard.
Oh,
Carmel.
Carmelo's. Okay,
Yeah, yeah. Thanks,
right.
Liz.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
Yeah,
and so, but
I
you
played
played.
there.
You must have played that. That was a nice room, wasn't it? Do you remember? It was kind of a
No.
large room. What about Catalina's? Did you do Catalina's?
Catalina, I didn't. I went there as a music consumer, but I never played there. I don't think with the band.
Jazz Bakery?
No, that wasn't there at the time. That was too recent. There was a place called Hop Sings. Remember that
Oh
place?
yeah,
In the
definitely.
marina. Come
Yeah.
Back In.
You played at the Comeback
I
Inn.
played at the Come Back In with Horace Tapscott.
Now that is intriguing. I mean, that
I
was
love that
indoors
place.
or outdoors?
It was inside.
Because it was so tiny in there.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So you didn't feel so bad about not having a lot of people show up to your gig. No, that was another one of those places like the Whale that hosted a lot
Yeah,
of really adventurous
yeah,
experimental music.
yeah. The
And
owner was really cool, Will, and he was definitely into that. He was into like you were saying. Dave Iwataki, no, Ca del Sol was a whole. That's still there. That's where Lancashire and Vineland meet in Studio City, and it's like a Ca del Sol was basically where the music was a small lounge. Yeah.
yeah, there was a place called At My Place.
Oh yeah. Now that was a good size
Was
stage.
that Santa Monica?
Yeah. Uh huh. That
That was
was.
a good sized stage. Yeah, we
Yeah.
played there fairly often, and Hop Sings was a pretty good sized stage too.
Uh huh. Yeah.
Um, where else? I mean, yeah, I mean those were the main ones.
Yeah. Isn't that
The other ones escape my memory at this point.
It's wild, man. That's why I say time is circular. It's just like, I mean that whole period of time, it was definitely like a different life, and but it was, but it had significance. Um, sorry, there's this thing keeps popping into my mind, which is somebody said this to me, and I even mentioned it yesterday with my guest. Um, but it's the past, including people, is not behind us. It's actually just ahead of us. It's leading us, and I really love that idea. It's ties in, you know, the people with you, and also, I don't know, it gives things more of an acknowledgement of some kind. Um, that we're all it's all tied in together. It's not something separate, you know.
Right. Are you getting all Isaac Asimov on me now? Is
Yes,
it?
I am.
Yeah. Before lunch?
I wake up like this.
Wow. Well, I can only hope that our that the era of places to play and to be with each other will once again flower after we're all out of our houses. And speaking for myself, I think if there's a banjo player playing down the street, I'm going.
Oh, really? Okay.
It just we need to get out and hear people play and be together. And so
I actually went out the other night in Burbank. My girlfriend was playing. It was outdoors. There were some heaters and a tent and piano and bass. And God, it felt good. It felt really good to hang out and listen to the music and
Right.
get up and sing. And yeah, it was really nice. I know some people feel like it's a little too early for that, but not
It depends on how many people are showing up, but generally I'm not keen to get in that situation just yet.
Yeah. I want to play Ambivalence. Should I, and absolutely just be straightforward about this. Should I play yours or should I play mine?
I think you should play yours.
Well,
we've already heard. Sorry?
No, I was just saying.
It's your show.
Well, I know, but it's not all about me,
Come on, Cathy. Play it. That's a beautiful orchestration by Dennis Dreeth.
It is. I'm looking for it. Okay, here it is. The Jazz Chamber and this moment. I'm going to share the screen because I think the sound is better.
Definitely.
In this moment now, I feel a thought that's real. As I look at all the things I always felt would matter more, and now days gone by, just memories. Today lives in this moment. We're the here and now, and all our plans will turn into our hopes and dreams. And then I see them as they do become. And then I see them from the place from where they came. And then I see them as what they could be. And then I know them from what they are showing me. And then I see them, and with all their pieces showing, and I see my life is a living thing growing.
will turn into our hopes and dreams. And then I see them as they do become. And then I see them from the place from where they came. And then I see them as what they could be. And then I know them from what they are showing me. And then I see them, and with all their pieces showing, and I see my life is a living thing growing.
Great.
Beautiful.
Just a gorgeous song.
Your nice ending too. Your take on this song was so much more optimistic than the original. Thank you. I mean, it was quite a, the lyric was much more hopeful and optimistic.
It's kind of what we've been talking about because, let's face it, that's where I live,
Yeah.
But that's what that song inspired. There was a continuity of existence. Let's see. there was a continuity of existence. So in that, there's, I really like that subject, and I relate to that when I'm singing or writing. And there's something hopeful, but there's also like sweet sadness is attached to it, and kind of it is what it is. All of that, I like all of that subject matter, and this song brought it out because I don't know, the space, the timing of the melody was so alluring to me, and the intervals. I really am attracted to intervals.
Yeah, it's not an easy song to sing, and also the structure of it is not your typical song structure either. So
yeah,
it must have been interesting to deal with the lyrics on that one.
It's so beautiful. Just, I mean, as soon as I started playing this, I was like, oh yeah, that's
yeah,
beautiful.
You put me in a better mood listening to that.
Oh, nice! I like
than
that.
on the original one. Is quite resigned to a particular emotional place that is not this.
Is that the one with the small group with Peter?
Well, in particular, the Epiphany version of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Is considerably darker than what
I think
we
it might
heard.
be a little slower too, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My friend Dan, who he's probably said hello to you, like at Just Jazz, but he saw your son play several times at Just Jazz,
right.
and
Luca,
wonderful player. I forget who I saw him with. Who did he play with there? Because
Luca played. He did a few things. He did a gig with Becca Stevens there one day, and then he did that James Newton tribute.
Oh, that's what
Benny.
I thought. Yeah,
Benny was there, and Nicole Mitchell was there. Roberta Miranda played bass.
Shauna was there. Shauna Tucker.
Right.
She was playing cello.
And this Mr. Music Head gallery they played at is another one of those wonderful spots in LA that the owner graciously has his space for improvising musicians, and he has a following that go to these functions, and it's a really beautiful vibe for people that go there.
Yeah.
And that night was really special. James Newton and his music, and
beautiful.
One of those things that if it comes up again, everybody don't miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But your son is a beautiful player.
He's doing great. Yeah. Thank you. He's, he loves playing with these musicians, and he's been playing with David Binney pretty regularly. They have a new record out. I don't know what it's called.
Have to hear that, ladies and gentlemen. We have to go listen to that.
What is it check called? Out as David Binney's new record. Is it on? What's the new one called? Is it Ariel? Is he on this one? I don't know. It's 2020.
Okay. We'll find
out which one he's on. But yeah, so that group was David Binney and Ben Ring is the drummer, and the bass player. My ex-student from SC, I forgot his name is. He plays
Alex Bonham or somebody like that.
He plays with that group, Lewis Cole's group. Anyway, who was the soprano sax player on This Moment?
Yeah, embarrassingly, I can't remember.
Between the two of us, we're not coming up with a lot of names today.
No, but let's see if I can pull it out. I know Bob Shepard was on this record, and so was Rob Lockhart. And here we go. Maybe it's in here. This Moment. Rob Lockhart.
Oh, Rob Lockhart, right?
Yeah. Yep. He did a beautiful job, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was I'm
trying to find the name of Dave's new recording.
Oh, okay. Do you have any opinions? I'm just curious. This is no hard and fast rule, but do you find any significant differences in age groups of musicians that are playing? Do you prefer, or is it just a project by project?
The older ones get tired faster. No, what do you mean, a difference between the age groups?
Just in their musical concepts, their playing. I mean, for instance, as an example, perhaps an old, maybe for the most part, and this is not 100%, but for the most part, maybe an older musician who has played longer, and singers as well, will have like a comfort zone, for instance, with slow tempos.
Right. Well, I mean, as a professor of music, I can tell you that the younger players haven't found a comfort zone of slow music yet, and it's a rarity that they do. But I'm not sure whether that's germane to this question. I think that the older players, some of them feel a comfort zone in the music that they play. The other older players will never find a comfort zone. They're always looking for something to push their playing. So I don't think that
it's not 100%.
The younger players obviously haven't found a comfort zone yet. So, they're still searching. But maybe one thing that I noticed is that older players seem to because of the how much time they've spent listening and playing and meeting people, have a lot more of the repertoire under their belt, and are likely to be aware of more of the music that came before them. I can only say that for myself, that when I was a younger writer, I wasn't a very informed writer. I just did what I felt, and wasn't that concerned about who else did it, or who else tried it, or how it didn't work with some people or didn't work with other people. I didn't care. In fact, I didn't listen to people when they told me not to do things, and that's part of the
that's
nature
success, isn't it?
well, it's part of the nature of what you do as a younger person, and that's why I'm careful not to tell younger people not to do anything, because I know I'll be ignored anyway, right?
Right.
But as an older person, you have more experience about what works and what doesn't, and more repertoire about who did what and when, and what you choose to build off of. But I hope not to lose that sense of just doing it regardless of what anybody tells me to do or what anybody else is doing, because that's a sense of experimentation that we hope to continue throughout our career. It doesn't matter what age you are, that there will always be a part of you that will say, let's try this. I don't care if somebody says it's not going to work. Let's try it anyway.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
Yeah.
Try this combination, or let's try this chord. Let's try this phrase or this interval or whatever in another context, and see how it works. And that part of that youthful, impulse to just do, just do this idea and see what happens. We all need to keep as an older, more informed musician.
Yeah. It's so cool. Conversations seem to go towards that a lot, and it's kind of, now that you're talking about it, it's kind of a balance between curiosity and moving forward and trying things, and then finding what works and doing it, which is kind of a different group of muscles, right? That's so cool.
Yeah, depending on what kind of project you're working on too, because you're not going to want to experiment on some things, whereas other things are completely wide open. When somebody tells you, just do what you feel, if you actually trust that's what they mean, then you can experiment a little bit. 9 times out of 10, that's not really what they mean. But if you get that opportunity, then go for it and try something, and don't pay attention to people when they say it's not going to work. And who cares what everybody else is doing? Just do what you feel.
Yeah. My dear friend Catherine Bostick, who's a film composer, she did the music for the documentary of Toni Morrison, and that was one of that. She said that was almost the only time that they just said, do whatever you want, and they never came back and said, could you fix this?
Right.
Never. So that was quite a significant moment just for her personally, It was just lovely,
Yeah, she did a beautiful job on that score, and she wouldn't have written like that if they had tried to put her in a box, or say, give her a temp track and say, here, sound like this.
Yeah. You have an old student, Christina Ray Rajel, I guess. She said, I loved having master classes with Mr. Vince Mendoza and the Metropole Orkestra in the Netherlands. Those were good times. Yeah.
We had, and we still do continue the arrangers workshop with the Metropole. The next one, we had to postpone this one for obvious reasons. The next one is scheduled for January of 22. So those aspiring composers
Great.
out there, and we're going to make it a composers workshop next time. So
Oh,
if you are writing, composing music for the orchestra, then this is a good opportunity to come out and write something for the Metropole and hang out with me and learn about writing and
I wish that
talk
was
about
me.
stuff.
I wish that was me, man.
Yeah.
Whew. Frank Griffith, who lives in the UK, he's a wonderful player and writer, arranger. He said really he's enjoying this, but he saw you perform at the IAJE in 2008 in Toronto. I was there
Oh yeah.
with the fantastic Humber College Band, and the closing piece was your interpretation of am I pronouncing this right? Bachianas Brasilias.
Bachianas. Well,
And
it was the piece was called Bachianas. Yeah.
Theater. He said it completely toppled the theater. Is that recorded anywhere?
No, I never recorded the Bachianas from stem to stern. It was written originally for the Cologne band, and we had Mark Walker and Ayrto Don Elias was there, and we made some radio recordings of the concert. It might be floating around somewhere with the WDR big band. Andy Narell played pans on it. And it was an 8-part suite called Bachianas. Had nothing to do with Villalobos, but it did sort of have some Brazilian tinge to it, I suppose. But strangely enough, not strangely enough, I sort of cannibalized that piece and have been using, various movements and rearranging them and rescoring them for different applications. And so you've pretty much heard most of Bachianas in different incarnations, for those of you who want to know. But yeah, I remember that concert. And I remember the end of it. The last movement is just based on a very simple lick, and I told the audience, you'll know it's almost over when you hear the teenage guitar solo, because in almost at the end of the piece, there's this guitar solo, and I encourage the player to really use their most expensive distortion pedal and do that. And I remember getting a complaint from an audience member in the BIM house in Amsterdam that, why do you call it a teenage solo? I used to just say it because I got laughs from the audience, and I'm a sucker for laughs. But I remember that concert in Toronto, and it was a beautiful time with that band. They played great, and the audience was very receptive and really fun. Humber College, also great students there.
Yeah. How long have you been teaching?
I started teaching at USC in 1985. I had comp students come to my place, and
1985.
1985.
Still at USC?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So I'm sorry, but you knew Larry Livingston.
I still do.
Yeah, because he's a friend of mine. He's been on the show, and I see him every week on a Zoom meeting.
Sure.
That's so cool.
In fact, Larry was, I don't know, he was the dean of the School of Music for a while, but there was somebody before Larry that was the dean when I was there as a student in 1983. But then I've been teaching on campus only maybe for the last 6 years or something like that. I used to teach, the students used to come out to the house to take lessons, but I decided that I wanted to have more of a campus presence. I really loved being with the students, and it was easier for me to teach the undergrads on campus because the undergrads had back-to-back classes and they couldn't make the drive out to our place.
Yeah.
So that way I have more of a smattering of a few undergrads with the grad students, and I love being on campus. I love the energy and hearing people play. And
USC is pretty exciting. I think it's probably one of the more exciting university campuses that I've been on. Because I've subbed at a few at USC and Cal UCLA, and also I taught for about 7 or 8 years for Cal State.
Cal State.
First I was at Long Beach, and then I was in LA. Yeah. But I mean, USC has
it has a wonderful faculty, and their contemporary music division is crazy talented faculty, and the composition department and the classical department is on fire now. Andrew Norman just left, but he was there, and Sean Fryer and Don Crockett and Ted Hearn. All of those classical composers are on fire now. So the school really has a tremendous faculty, and the students are great. And they've been handling this remote, Zoom lessons and classes with grace and enthusiasm. And I'm kind of digging the Zoom lessons, to be honest with you. I like having the ability to share screens and look at scores and hear recordings, and that part of it doesn't bother me too much.
Yeah.
Ensembles, of course, I miss.
Yeah.
And the general hangout vibe.
Yeah, I know the ensembles. That's the difficult.
Yeah,
it's too bad. Mark Baldrich wanted to know, he's a composer, but he doesn't play. And he was just curious if you knew of composers who couldn't play. And because he's in a situation where he can't play, and he still makes CDs.
Oh, composers that don't play that make CDs. Well, I'm living proof of that. And Maria.
There you go, Mark.
And Maria.
Maria doesn't play?
No.
Oh.
Darcy. Darcy Argue, he doesn't play. I mean, he's not playing on his CDs as far as I know.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few, and I know a fair amount of composers in Europe now, the young crowd, that are making CDs of their band and not playing. Now, there is a caveat to that, because one of my big heroes, Pat Williams, also was a card-carrying member of Trumpet Players Anonymous, as was Quincy. Quincy didn't play anything, and he, made quite a few CDs.
Yeah.
To answer your question, there's quite a few musicians that are making. The caveat is that if you're expecting to go on the road to promote your CD and you're not playing anything, then what are you going to do? I mean, if you have a big band, it sort of works out that you can dance around in front and give cues and things and talk to the audience. If you're having to make your group a quartet because that's the only way you can afford to tour, then conducting a quartet is going to, I don't know about the optics of that. If you want to use that word.
The visual.
So that's the only catch, that if you're touring, and I've had to face the reality of that too, that if I go on tour with an octet, to reduce all of my music to 8 pieces just so I can afford to make a few $100 on a tour, is it worth it or not? And is it worth, is it going to make the record company happier if you're out there with an octet making an extra $100 here and there?
Yeah.
So it's a deeper question than what Jack, who was it? Jack asks.
Mark.
Mark. Oh, sorry. Mark asks. Yeah, of course you can make the CDs. Keep making them, and can't wait to hear them. But touring is an issue, and I'm out there with various orchestras and stuff touring. But whether they make the connection to my records or not is, who knows?
Yeah.
But it's an expensive venture.
I have a cool question here. Kent Brief. He loves your compositions, such as Babe of the Day and Orange Guitars, especially the unpredictable to my ears melodic turns. With such compositions, were they crafted over time, or were they things that just came to you? Did they start with the changes or the melodies? Curious about your process.
Both of those tunes that you mentioned were born of improvisations that I edited and changed and turned upside down and backwards and made structures from. So as composers, we come up with material in a lot of different ways, and some of them are very calculated and slow, and other ways are very quick and improvisational. The improvisational ones, 99% of the time you'll look at it and go, well, I like this, but I don't like that. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. This is great. I'm going to make this longer. This is great too, but I'm going to put this at the beginning. If this over here, I'm going to put at the end.
Yeah.
And then maybe I can base some chord changes over this. But sometimes, 1% of the time you might improvise something and you go, wow, that's just great the way it is.
Yeah.
And I learned that really from Joe Zawinul and Wayne Shorter, and the way that they constructed their music for Weather Report, that it was a very organic process of writing, especially with Joe, that he improvised a lot of what those records became, the Syndicate records. And he was loath to edit his material in a way to make it any different than what his improvisations were.
Right.
So there's a story about In a Silent Way, the way that I think that was fairly improvised, but Miles just took the one aspect of the song,
yeah,
and used that for the record, for the In the Silent Way record. But Joe has another version of it on his own record. In one of the interviews, they asked Joe, what he thought of Miles' version, and Joe said, well, I didn't really like it because it left out so much of what the longer structure was about. That wasn't really what Miles was thinking about. He was thinking about the essence of the piece and what it could become with the musicians on his record. With Joe, it was about the longer organic structures and the two pieces that the question was about were improvisations, and Babe of the Day was it was an improvisation that was edited and turned upside down and backwards, and a very difficult tune to play. Actually, I think Orange Guitars is probably even more difficult to play because of the rhythms involved, and the rhythms were really about sounding improvisational. When I think about how to write phrases, think about how would Wayne play it,
right?
And so that the phrasing somehow lives on a different plane to the rhythm section. And that's sort of how those two songs were meant to exist. By the way, if those of you who listen to Babe of the Day is Peter Erskine's first take on that song, for one take.
Oh my God.
Well, but listen to that song and how difficult it is, and
Babe,
first take. It's from the Start Here record, the first piece.
Babe of the Day.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I'd like to. Do you mind if we play it?
You can play a little bit of it.
Okay.
Sort of long, but it's Erskine, Will Lee on bass, Jim Beard, Bob Mincer, and John Scofield.
Okay. John Scofield, one of my favorites.
With most ancestry tests, the best you can hope for is a bunch of wishy-washy pie charts.
Really should
Exactly. Few little tidbits about this recording from 1989.
Yeah.
We recorded the live sessions in New York, but the music was all written and sequenced here, and I orchestrated the synth parts with Judd Miller, a great EDI player, synth programming genius, and after we programmed the synth sounds, we would go to a studio here in LA, and we would dump all of the synth sounds onto 2-inch analog tape, and I shipped like 5 boxes of 10 reels of 2-inch tape to New York.
Oh my God.
Of the pre-recorded tracks to which the live musicians played.
Oh my God.
So the process was quite complicated and sort of backwards from the way that most records were made in the 80s. Usually put the synth stuff on after. But I wanted the synth stuff to be integrated into the live performances.
Yeah. Really, I mean, this is amazing.
Great solos. John Scofield.
But that was gorgeous. I love what Peter was doing, and
First take, incredible.
And also, Sco, man, he's got to be one of my favorite players. And what blew my mind on that was he was how, especially right the first space he left, that was a big space.
Space.
You know, and then when he started playing, you could hear the what was coming harmonically, even though it wasn't playing yet. You could hear the expectancy. That was gorgeous.
We began the hangout talking about Epiphany and the position that I put the improvisers in. This is sort of a similar thing. You know, the quintet is all there playing to the pre-recorded tracks, but the music is super hard and rhythmic, and the changes are tricky. Sco's changes were not really related to the beginning of the song at all. They were different changes. The form is rather organic, so it's not like he had anything on which to base his improvisation.
Yeah.
So it was a very difficult job for him. I think John, I'm not sure how much time he spent. It wasn't like he had the parts for months before he arrived. He probably saw it that day.
Oh God.
And so I can't underestimate how much pressure they probably were under to play at a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, I love how unself-conscious the guitar solo is, and the sax solo, but in particular Sco's playing, the space that he leaves, and how patient he is with the development of a beautiful solo.
He's an amazing player. He really is one of my favorite players. And actually, I've loved his music for years too. And I did a gig at Just Jazz, and John Leftwich arranged some of the music. We had a small, very small, well, I can't say it was orchestral. It was a larger than a quartet, but very small. Anyway, we did several pieces of his, and I actually just kind of on the spur of the moment wrote lyrics to a bunch of them.
Oh, nice.
But I love Sco's writing too. The heads are really distinctive, and then there's some kind of crazy bridge and
right. Yeah, he's really a great composer too. I love his tunes.
Yeah, but that's so great what you said about his playing, about being unself-conscious, and it's really.
I mean, that's how we feel about recording sessions. We're all sort of tossed into the same environment, and we have to sort of figure out how we're going to sound good. But after that second, third, fourth take, and you're playing the same changes 4 or 5 times, then inevitably these, I should play that thing again, or I should, oh man, I should play that lick when that chord comes. And then the calculation starts, and you lose that, sense of that first reaction to the moment.
Yeah.
And that's what those records were. All of those solos were about that. On Start Here instructions, they were all, first, second takes. And the same with Epiphany. I don't think that we did any more than maybe 2, 3 takes max of tunes. So those solos were, first reactions.
Beautiful.
And that's part of why I think that those tunes came out so beautifully.
Such an acknowledgement of the person, right? For the person to achieve a level of doing that well, and then having the people in charge of the project say that was perfect. Wow, huge acknowledgement, personal acknowledgement for that.
Yeah. Well, the jazz composers operate from the point of view of the player, and so we have to acknowledge who's participating in the story.
Yeah.
And we hopefully make the right choices, and they play something that you could never imagine.
Yeah.
Would be a contribution to the drama.
My friend Jamie actually brought up Ralph Towner.
Yeah.
Another.
Yeah.
You worked with Ralph?
Yeah, well, Ralph was on this record, Start Here, and he was also on Instructions Inside, both of the two of them. And Ralph was, my superhero from way back in my young formative years. And so when I had the idea to involve him in a project, I got a hold of him through John Abercrombie.
Yeah.
And over the years, we became very close friends, and he lives in Rome now with his wife, and we try to see them as much as we can. But he was one of those guys that you idolize in your formative years, and then you find out that he's the nicest guy ever, and funny, beautiful guy, and his music is so soulful and deep.
Yeah.
And so he participated in a similar fashion in this record. A lot of pressure, and he played beautiful solos and handled the sessions with aplomb and humor and grace.
Yeah.
Ralph Towner.
Didn't I heard that ECM started because of Oregon and Weather Report, and there was somebody, Pat Metheny, maybe. Was that true?
Keith.
Yeah.
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 Not so much Weather Report, but it was Keith and Pat and Jan Christensen and Jan Garbarek, the Norwegian crowd. That's where that label started. But Ralph has been, and John Abercrombie, they were both loyal members of the label.
Yeah.
Pete was on ECM for a minute too, with his quartet with John Taylor, Polly Danielson. Great trio records.
Norma Winstone.
Norma.
Yeah.
John Taylor. Such beautiful music on those records. It's, just go through the ECM discography on their website and listen to everything.
Yeah, I know. Totally beautiful.
Yeah, such care that they put into those recordings.
Yeah.
But Manfred is another producer that is keen to keep that impulse, the first impulse, in those recordings. That he's not keen for the 9th, 10th, 25th take. He wants to know what your original reaction, immediate reaction to the music, and that's it. Mistakes. There are no mistakes.
Yeah.
It's part of what makes those records so beautiful.
Yeah. Christina's actually asking a good question too. In the process of composition, I guess she's asking, well, it says, what other composers are the inspirations, and is it important to analyze someone else's work and then implement it to your own work? I actually was wondering if you mentioned a few people that you admired a lot. Do you think there were people that you wanted to emulate?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, you whether you want to or not, you do. At a young age, right? I mean, you hear, I heard Mancini and I heard Burt Bacharach, and I heard Tom Bell, and I heard early on as a trumpet player, Jack Sheldon. I wanted to be Jack Sheldon when I grew up. I'd stay up late so I could hear little snippets of the Merv Griffin show. I could hear Jack hanging over at the end of the song.
That's great. And talk about Dante's. He used to hang out at Dante's.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But then, I got into college, and you discover Miles and all of his recordings. I discovered Joe and Wayne. So that music went deep into my subconscious, and so when you're writing, all of that stuff comes out. And just take a second to talk about my son. When he was very young, we encouraged him to improvise on the piano and just make stuff up, and that was good, and he loved it, and he always loved doing it. But the more that he studied, the more that the music that he studied gave more depth and informed his improvisations. And so his improvisations as a 5-year-old had that 5-year-old exuberance, but as an 8-year-old had similar exuberance, but more depth. And as an 18-year-old, or as a 25 or 22-year-old now, his improvisations have all of the experience of his study and being a musician and people that he heard and loved. And the same thing is true for a composer. So there are things that I did as a 15-year-old composer that are, as an 18-year-old are a lot more informed, hopefully similarly exuberant. As a 25-year-old, a lot more informed. And maybe you have a little bit more control over, okay, well, this sounds a lot like Joe, so I'm going to, change it. Or maybe I'm not going to do it, similar to what a trumpet player or a tenor player would think of, man, I could do that, but it sounds like train.
Yeah.
So I have to change it somehow.
Yeah.
But you have to still have train in your subconscious.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's there whether you like it or not. So,
John Prue is here. And
hi, John.
He said when you came to Western Michigan University a couple of years ago, when he was doing his master's there, he loved your clinic. And one thing that really stuck with him was how you described letting the phrase dictate the time signature, which I think is an interesting approach.
Right. Yeah. Quite often, I talk about that a lot in the master classes of working with shapes and phrasing before I think about meters, because I want to be able to complete a phrase and not be subject to the constraints of the bar line. And so I will often make up write out shapes on manuscript paper, and then think of how I want to have them written out rhythmically. And I'll write out the rhythm of the phrase, and then I'll meter it.
Right.
And that way, it seems more free.
Yeah. I mean, just thinking of ambivalence, that seems very, maybe that's why I was drawn to it, because the phrasing of it seemed very, it seemed like the phrases themselves were complete, a complete idea.
Right.
They didn't have to fit into something. It was
right.
There was a beautiful phrase.
Yeah, that's exactly how that piece was written. First with shapes, and then maybe I'll draw a line over the shape to know where the phrase should be, and then I'll put the rhythm to it, and then I'll meter it. Nice. But then there's the 2/4 bars and the 3/4 bars, and I want to say that's Bert too, right?
Yeah.
Because Bert is has the sidecar of the 2/4 bar at the end of the phrase.
Yeah.
Why? Because the phrase wants to be longer.
Yeah. Wasn't did he write Relaxing in Camarillo? Because that was
well, Charlie Parker wrote that.
Oh, okay. Because there was there was a time thing with the way, and he actually did that several times. He wrote these melodies that rhythmically were let's see, what are the words? Unusual. They came in. The phrase came in, instead of coming in here, it came in here halfway through the bar or something. I remember learning that song and getting comfortable with that, and I was blown away with that. It was, once I got it in my bones, it was like, ooh, I love that.
It's more improvisational. I tell my students, why do all your phrases start on the downbeat?
Right.
Why can't you start on the two and? How about the three and? How about on three? What would that sound like? And how long would the phrase be? And where do you end up? Somewhere on bar 2 or bar 3 or whatever. Who cares?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the phrase.
Yeah.
And so John remembers that I will write out dots basically on the page and then work out the rhythms and the meters from there. So don't you dare buy manuscript paper with the lines already written. You know how you can buy those things? The lines are already there. Save you the problems. The trouble. That's where the software sometimes gets in the way. Yeah.
Wow. Now you've kind of acknowledged the way I write my compositions, which is nice because, sometimes I'll write a song and somebody will say, that's like a 9-bar phrase. Yeah, I know.
Right.
It has to be that. That's what the song is,
Yeah. So what?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way we feel it. Huh. That's the way, we would know an improviser and by how long their phrases are. Of course, we know their sound, we know their language, but we also know their phrasing. And that's an important part of our personality.
Yeah.
And as a writer, certainly.
I think Sco really has that. I mean, everybody does. All good players, I think, do that. But Sco stands out in my mind for that. And I have to tell you a little Sco story that I went to the old Catalinas and I saw him play. And he was with, I can't remember the guy's name. I think he's a tenor player, Sean something, Irish, really good jazz player. And they were fronting a trio, or I think maybe it was, he was, I'm not sure, there was a piano player. But what I remember about the gig was, I'd love to ask Sco if this was planned.
It was Seamus.
Seamus, thank you.
Seamus Blake.
Seamus Blake, yeah, wow. I haven't heard about him recently.
Amazing.
I want to hear him more. But the two of them were on the front of the stage, and at one point, they both were soloing together, and they were standing, here and here. And then as you were watching and as they were soloing, they started kind of rotating outward. And my head blew apart. It was like, because the music, between the music and the visual and, whatever that turned on, that was an amazing.
Do you think that it was choreographed or were they just looking for the way out?
I think it was choreographed, but I have to ask them, I wonder if they did that a lot or why, maybe they happened on it, or maybe somebody said, hey, let's do this. Was
it the last tune of the set?
That I don't
remember. Looking for the, I think I came in this way. What was it? Dennis Irwin, the late Dennis Irwin, and Bill Stewart, I think, the drummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that quartet.
Yeah.
Great quartet. Yeah. and Seamus took Lovano's place.
Oh.
In that group.
He was wonderful. But I haven't actually listened to him in a long, long time. I have to go look for him again.
Seamus, yeah. Great tenor player.
Yeah. Let's see. We're coming close to the end. See, 2 hours goes by.
It does.
kind of comfortably.
Talking about stuff.
Yeah. He said, Kent said, I believe you were responsible for the keyboard sequenced intro to Market Street on Jimmy Haslip's Arc record.
Yes.
I love but struggled to hear the one. How was it conceived? Is it in 4? Another improvisation? That's a good question.
Did I start it on the down? I think it's the change when the band comes in. I think it's like the first 4 bars of the changes of the song. Sorry about the phone.
Oh, that's
the first 4 bars of the changes of the song are the changes that I use for the sequence. So it probably is in 4. Could you not figure it out? Did it not start on the downbeat?
Let's see if I can. I wonder if I can find it, and then you can listen and you can go, oh yes.
I can find it on this side, and then it's from Jimmy Haslip's record.
That's what it says. Arc. Jimmy.
Oh yeah. Here, let me listen to it. Oh. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. I have to run it back. Ah, yeah. That's the first rhythm, okay? Oh, no, that's not it. So it starts on the downbeat. So when the rhythm section comes in, I think that's right. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing you should know about these trumpet parts are all Chuck Finley, the god of the trumpet.
Yeah.
Also living in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Why else would you live in L.A.? All these guys. Chuck did all of the trumpet parts. Wow. So for those of you out there that don't know this, he had to bring different trumpets because he plays so precisely and in tune that there would be phase problems if he used the same trumpet. So for every part, he would use a different trumpet. And that's how we were able to avoid having these weird phase problems.
Was I incorrect? It almost felt like when the band was there, the line came in on the end of 4 or something.
The first
when the band came in.
I think that the first beat of the sequence is 1. I mean, the first note of the sequence is 1.
Right.
But then nice programming from Judd Miller. Right. And then it's the same, I think the same sequence at the end, by the way. Here. It's the same thing. I got lazy. Right. So the chord is on the downbeat.
Beautiful.
So the veil has been lifted. Thanks for that question. I haven't listened to that in years.
That was a good question. Ken said thank you. But
that's from Arc, Jimmy Haslip's Arc, 1993.
Yeah, Jimmy's such a good musician too.
Oh, yeah. Jimmy, Luis Conte, I think Bees plays on that, John Beasley, and Chuck Finley. Bob Mintzer plays a blistering solo at the end of that. Wow, I have to go back and listen to that.
Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing this time. I know your time is valuable, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Cathy, for the invitation. It was fun.
It was really fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are we going to hear something in the near future from you out in the?
Yes. My new orchestra record is coming out in July. It's called Freedom Over Everything, with the Czech National Symphony. Antonio Sanchez, Derek Hodge, Josh Redman, Julia Bullock, the soprano, American soprano, and the rapper Black Thought from The Roots. So that's July. So the single is May, I think, and then another single in June, and then the whole record comes out in July. So,
wow,
more music coming up. So that has a new concerto for orchestra, the concertino for trumpet called New York Stories, and a new piece called To the Edge of Longing, based on Rilke. So should be fun.
I must say, I also like the titles of your songs.
I'd like to say that I made up To the Edge of Longing, but it's a line from the Rilke Book of Hours.
But in general, the names of your songs are so Wheaten Sky, Esperanza, and Esperanza. Sanctus, Epiphany, Barcelona. I don't know. They have a. I think they reflect your emotion in your music.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I've gotten a lot of heat about my song titles, so it's nice to hear that somebody likes them.
Really? You've gotten heat for that?
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
Why?
I don't know.
Well, you just send them to me. I'll straighten them up.
I don't really like titling things, but sometimes it's easy and sometimes it isn't. And most of the time, in the old days, they used to be just file names. And they worked out, but
that's funny.
I have to work on it.
I remember that in the old days, that
file names. Right?
Yeah. Now I'm just going to take 1 second before we leave and just say that what I've been doing is the 4 days a week that I'm not live, I've been replaying the archives, which is really fun. And most of the time I get them on at 12, but some of the times my COVID brain or something. So this week it's Bob Shepard, tomorrow, and Kuba Stankiewicz, who's a really wonderful arranger from Poland, and John Prue on Saturday, and Greta Matassa on Sunday.
Wow, great programming there, Cathy.
Thanks. And then just throwing it out, next week live is Marion Cowings, a very established longtime singer in New York, Dr. Bobby Rodriguez, who's an LA man, and Chris Wabich, a great drummer. Do you know Chris?
I don't know Chris.
You would like his playing. He's right up your alley. He's a wonderful, wonderful musician, very creative. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Vince. Really fun.
Thank you, Cathy. It's great to see you again.
Great
to see you, everybody in Facebook land. And we'll see you again soon. I'll be listening for some more music.
All right. Get busy, people. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.